We are living in a world where most people either have no values to stand for or they stand for the wrong thing. But in a world as crazy as this is, you still try to get ahead, build yourself a name, earn respect, and be successful at your craft. Now, the journey of getting there consists of small daily tasks. You tick them off. You make the phone call, prepare the presentation, get in touch with the right people. But no matter how many boxes you check off, you are never truly complete. There's always a next step. And more frustrating than the fact that you're never fully done is that you always have to wait until you get to that next step. And the first time that I got thinking about this was actually in high school, and it got me questioning so many things in life. I just felt like life is an endless cycle of waiting for the next thing to happen. You're waiting to finish school to get into university, then you're waiting to finish university for 3 years to start working. Then when you're at work, you're waiting for a promotion to finally make some money, or you're waiting to get to launching your business, get your clients, or push out some sort of new campaign. There's always this phase where you're doing something to get to the next thing. But even non-business wise, you wait until you find the right girl, then you wait until moving in with her, then until proposing, and then getting kids. This is so frustrating, isn't it? Many of the things that we do feel like transitions, and I remember thinking, why don't we just skip the transition and get to the main event? Will I ever even get there, or how can I expedite my journey? I was so angry of this situation, and it took me many more years to understand the groundness of this problem and that it is something that will be with you your entire life. In a world where completion is obsolete, happiness, true happiness, the state of final arrival, is impossible. You're getting shit done, but your reward is having to deal with other bigger tasks. You'll be achieving things, but you will always want the next thing. At least this is the case if you're driven by performance and mastery. And while some things can be expedited, that's not the case for everything. You can get more experiences faster, but true wisdom does take time, and so do building deep relationships or achieving mastery. If you ever felt this frustration that I did, then let me bring order, clarity, and meaning to the chaos of all of this by discussing aiming for the right thing, mastering the art of patience, and being ruthless about expediting what can be expedited. So let's dive in. Here's the truth about happiness. Growth and fulfillment are simply more meaningful long-term pursuits. Don't get me wrong, being happy is an amazing state. I'm happy when I achieve something, when I'm with my loved ones, or when life feels easy and stress-free. But happiness is temporary. It comes and goes, and chasing it as a destination will leave you feeling empty when the novelty wears off or the pain kicks in. Happiness really is like an oasis on the journey, a place to rest and recharge, but not where you're meant to stay. For example, being with my family is fulfilling, but it doesn't challenge me, it doesn't push me to grow. It makes me feel comfortable, and comfort is not bad, but it's not where growth happens. The real lasting fulfillment comes from self-growth, the journey, and not the oasis. The journey of building, making connections, and learning lessons. Happiness can and should be part of the process, but it's the growth that leaves a legacy. It's the journey that brings meaning. When I was building my first business, a clothing brand, I experienced incredible wins, like being named on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list, building a recognized brand, and eventually selling the business. But every win was followed by another day of mundane tasks, back to Excel sheets, email complaints, and problems to solve. The momentary highs were nice. Those were the public wins when I got a nice pat on the shoulder, but internally, what kept me going was the certainty that I was growing throughout the process. And when I decided to sell that business after 4 years, it was primarily because I felt that I'm hitting a ceiling in that learning curve. Everybody thought that I'm incredibly successful, but deep down I felt like I'm no longer progressing and I no longer face huge adversities that I need to outmaneuver. And with that, I just knew that I needed a change and some sort of bigger challenge. Now, challenges are important. They are the main sources of self-growth, which is why the right mindset is to see adversity as a necessary ingredient to get better. There's nothing like solving a problem that will help you feel fulfilled. Alright, but how about the challenge of having to be always waiting? And here's what I genuinely think about being patient. Fuck that shit. As an individual with focus, if you know what you want, just go for it, and go for it with velocity, hunger, and persistence. Now, at the same time, there are some things in life where you cannot operate with speed. Sometimes things just take longer. For example, let's take starting a business. You first need an idea, and that alone takes time. It takes time to observe, explore, and let the inspiration strike. Then getting committed also takes time because, you know, maybe you gotta first say no to some other options, or because you first want a confirmation that this thing is actually for you. And then once you commit, you have to start building, and creating a product or selling a service will naturally require time because you need to form relationships and earn the trust of other people, and everything that involves other people will always take time. Now, patience is hard because our brains are wired for instant gratification. We want to see results now, but the truth is that the best things in life compound over time. Back to the example of my first business. When I launched it at 24, I didn't know anything about what I'm doing. I thought that I would build a business in 6 months, sell it, and move on to the next thing. And in those 4.5 years that I eventually spent building this project, I learned so much about the real timelines that you need to operate under. And one of the things that always hindered me in this first business was that I never took it as a long-term project. You know, when you're just starting out, you naturally need to do a lot of outreach. You need to get a partnership with someone to build your credibility, sell to a random person, ask for a favor from some random friend, and at first, a lot of the people reject you because you have no credit to your name. Then, let's say 2 years pass, you build a following, people start noticing you, and finally, it's you who's starting to receive inbound. And personally, it took me 2 years to grow from the state of who's this guy messaging me to, hey, I want to work with you. And to reach that, to build that credibility, trust, and confidence in others, it's not something that you can expedite. It can only happen through putting in the work consistently over a period of time so that results can surface. And that's it. Earning cannot be expedited. And also an important thing, the more you are involved in working with others, the more you're dealing with the schedules of other people, and they won't take your thing as the main priority. So for example, when you're reaching out, even getting a response in and of itself is something that takes time, and waiting slows down your progress. Now, the right mindset to approach these things is to master the art of patience, which doesn't mean that you need to learn how to wait peacefully. It means, first and foremost, to build yourself the long-term vision that justifies extended time frames. After my first business, the second one that I'm currently building, I want it to be a 20-year run. I know that building a foundation will take time, but I also know that compounding will work in my favor. And this gives me a sense of peace and a different feeling to how I approach people, relationships, and just generally the way that I work. Now, the average billionaire becomes so rich by his 60s because it takes on average 30 to 40 years for compounding to work out for him. And the only reason they make it is because they keep their focus on their craft and put in the work consistently. Everything is about finding a vision and keeping yourself focused on it for a long enough time frame. With that, my friend, patience is no longer a passive act. It's an active element of your relentless focus on the horizon of longevity. But not everything deserves patience, which brings me to my third and final point: ruthlessly expediting what you can. Some things can be sped up and should be sped up. It's all about finding what you can control and putting action into them. For example, while you're waiting for a guy to respond to your query, go ahead and do the next thing. A project is usually very complex and has multiple moving parts, and just because you need to wait for somebody's response to go ahead with part A, it doesn't mean that you can't progress with part B. Just do it. Identify what you can control and tackle those tasks with velocity. So here are some of the things that you can control and have huge impacts on the long run as well. The number one is execution. No procrastination or waiting for the perfect time. Start now, even if it's a messy action. Then you can also expedite your learning by seeking out mentors or intentionally exposing yourself to challenges. I had one mentor in my life, and on top of his teachings, it was also what I learned just from being around him. The way that he carried himself. He was as sharp and ruthless as you can imagine about a guy that already built himself an empire. Now, how many guys like that do you think that I've got as friends in my day-to-day life? Not many. Purely being exposed to his behavior has completely rewired my thinking. Which brings me to my third controllable element, networking. Connections don't just happen organically. You can put yourself in the right room by reaching out and seeking to build relationships intentionally. And the people you hang out with, they will have the biggest impact on your life. So, be careful about who you're letting into your life and expedite the journey of building yourself the right circle. So these are the things that you can speed up, but there are some lessons that must be learned the hard way. Most importantly, you can't rush wisdom. A mentor can show you the way and help you avoid some of the pitfalls, but it is you who's going to get their hands dirty, and you will have your failures and adversities when you need to figure things out on your own. Cultivating a mindset, building resilience, and learning leadership, these things take time, and it's through getting your own skin burnt in the game that you can earn those. And I think this is the number one difference between learning that can be expedited and earning, which cannot. So here's the truth. You will never be happy because you will never be done. There's no finish line where you suddenly feel complete or happy forever. But that's not a bad thing. You can still become a winner by aiming for self-growth, building yourself a vision that justifies patience for some things while you keep being ruthless about expediting what you can. Fulfillment comes from intentionality and design, not in waiting for some distant destination, but in choosing the person you want to become and working on getting there. Now, thank you for watching. This was my first video where I'm dissecting a concept and not just vlogging about what's going on in the business that I'm building. If you liked it, I appreciate the feedback, so make sure that you drop a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.